You had in mind you wanted to plan on eating apples. You're eating apples. You had in mind any apple that will be brought to you. So the bracha, when you say a bracha on an apple, that bracha on that apple will cover all other apples that you plan on eating, as long as you plan on eating apples. So too over here, you plan on drinking wine. So the fact that they bring out another bottle of wine does not obligate you to go ahead and say another bracha on a different wine, even though it's a different wine. And the Gemara means to say the following. We find this phenomenon by wine, that wine is very unique, that all other beverages, the bracha is shehako. And the wine, the rabbis, the Chachamim gave a special bracha for the wine, Baruch Gefen. Unique bracha for wine. That wine is something unique, something special, recognizing the great qualities of wine. Being that that's the case, a person might have thought that if you bring out another bottle of wine, a second bottle of wine, a different wine, maybe the rabbis would give such respect for the new bottle of wine that you would have to say a new Baruch Gefen. So the Gemara says no. If you bring out a new bottle of wine, you will not need to say Baruch Gefen on the new bottle of wine. And what I would understand, that means provided you're planning on drinking. It's not like you drank one cup of wine and I had in mind, I'm not drinking anymore. So if you had in mind, I'm not drinking, I'm finished. So then the point is, I finished, the bracha is gone. If I'm not drinking anymore, now I change my mind. That should require a new bracha. But here we're talking about I plan on drinking. I'm at a meal. I plan on drinking. I didn't have in mind not to drink any more wine. So therefore, if they bring out a new bottle of wine, I do not need to say a new hagefen. You should know it's interesting on Shabbat. The rule is, let's say I make kiddush on Shabbat, and I'm also going to have wine during the meal. So do I need to say a bracha on the wine that I'm having during the meal? The answer is, since I said kiddush, the Baruch Gefen on kiddush will cover the wine that I have during the meal, because I know there's a good chance I'm going to have wine during the meal. So therefore, I do not need to say a new Baruch Gefen, because I already said Baruch Gefen when I said the kiddush on the wine, because the kiddush has the Baruch Gefen. Well, let's say tonight is not Shabbat. If I would go ahead and I'm having dinner, and let's say I had bread, so I washed on the bread, said I'm motzi on the bread, and then they brought out a bottle of wine. I'm required to say a gefen on that bottle of wine. I need to say, even though I had bread, people make this mistake. They don't realize, I think people make this mistake. They think if they're having dinner during the weekdays and they bring out a bottle of wine after they said hamotzi, they think that they do not have to say the bracha on the wine. The answer is no, they have to, because wine is not secondary to bread. Wine is its own. It's a big man, so to speak. It's chashuv. It's meaning to say the following. How does it work by a meal? It works by a meal when you say hamotzi by a meal. The motzi, the bread, is called the ikar. Bread is called the main thing of the meal, and everything else is secondary to the bread. And therefore, all the foods that you eat during the meal are covered by the hamotzi, because the motzi is like the king, and everything else is like is incorporated under the king. However, wine, because of its uniqueness, and Tosfos says that what's unique about wine, it fills you up, satiates you, and wine also brings you simcha. It has those two qualities of simcha, happiness, and it also has that quality of filling you up. Because of that, that's what's unique. Therefore, wine is not considered second to bread, so to speak. Second to bread, that means it's not considered tafel, negligible, so to speak, towards the bread, and therefore the wine gets its own bracha. So when you say hamotzi, if a person says hamotzi tonight, then they bring in the wine, they have to go ahead and say the bracha on the wine. The wine is not covered by the hamotzi. All the other drinks that you can have at the meal, all the other food you'll have by the meal are covered by hamotzi. We have a similar another halacha, that food that's not part of the meal, food that, let's say you have dessert, fruit for dessert. Fruit is not a meal food. It's not something you eat as part of the meal. And therefore, fruit, if you can bring out fruit, even though you had a motzi, most people would say a border creates on the fruit that comes out because it's not part of the meal. Hamotzi will cover what's part of the meal. Food that are eaten as part of the meal, but the fruit is not eaten. Good morning, Morris. Morris, was that you the whole time? I can't. That was you the whole time.
Yes. Yeah.
How you doing? We miss you.
All good, Rabbi. Thank God, all good.
You're away?
Not really. I'm here.
You weren't feeling well, or
My wife, yeah.
oh, you were okay? You should have a for shalema.
Thank you.
Was that you that was on last week or earlier this week? There was an iPhone that
Yeah.
without an iPhone without a
Yeah.
beautiful face. That was you. What?
Yes.
I wasn't sure if it was you or someone else. You were tzniut, you were so modest, you did not identify yourself.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I also had extra time this week to learn Morris with you. I was missing that opportunity.
I know. Crazy.
Okay.
Who's in the class now, Rabbi? Busy the class?
Me and you. What?
Oh, it's just me and you? You want to hear something crazy, Rabbi? Remember last week on Friday when you asked me to stay and I said, oh, I have to go to work out, something I told you?
You said you had to go for some reason. You had to go.
Okay, so typically we would stay and learn, right? Until what time?
It's about 9 or so.
9:15, right? Usually?
9:15, yeah, more like 9:15 or something like that.
So I live on East 61st Street. There was a car accident on my corner that killed 2 people at 9:30. And I would be walking on that street usually at that time, if we would have learned.
The learning would have protected you. Don't worry about it. It says the Chafetz Chaim brings down that the learning protects your family, protects your family. So
crazy,
don't. Maybe if you would have learned, maybe the merit that you learned, the whole accident wouldn't have happened. If you saved the whole block, maybe you would save the whole block in your merit.
That's true. Where's the whole class?
I'm not sure. I don't know where. I know. Maybe people will be coming. I mean, Yaron, had a baby boy.
Yeah, I know. I spoke to him.
Yeah, so
I think people are scared. People are scared because this corona thing is going around very heavy.
Yeah, it could be because of that, or some people might be away because people are off tomorrow.
That's true.
Yeah, that's what I think.
So I'm around all day to learn if you want, Rabbi.
Okay, so what time? So you coming? What? So we'll learn. You want to learn at after davening, after minyan?
On Zoom, yeah. Whatever you want to do, we'll do.
Okay, so
Continue though.
I'll call you. I'll call you after davening. Bez Hashem.
Beautiful.
Okay. So getting back, but so that's the idea of the hamotzi. The hamotzi does not cover the dessert, so to speak. But now, some say the Aruch HaShulchan says that if you have dessert, they have cake for dessert. So cake, he says, is like bread. So therefore, since cake is like bread, it fills you up. It has mezonot in it. So therefore, he's of the opinion that you will not need to say bracha on the cake if you had hamotzi. Getting back to our Gemara, so the Gemara says the following. The Gemara says, Tashma, Shinu Yayin, 5 lines from the bottom. Shinu Yayin ein sarach levarech. If you bring out another bottle of wine, you're not required to say another bracha on another bottle of wine, because the first bottle of wine that you say geffen covers the second bottle of wine, even though it's a different wine. However, shini makom sarach levarech. The Gemara says that if you change your place, you would have to go ahead and say a new bracha. That means this opinion says that if I go ahead and I'm drinking wine in place A, in this building, and I leave this building, the leaving of the building is an interruption in my bracha, is an interruption in my blessing, and I would be required, we are nun test of a base on the bottom, and we are required to say a new bracha if I want to continue drinking. Let's say you see you're drinking something in the screen right here. So whatever you're drinking in the screen right here, if you leave your building, now since you're drinking right here, you have a place, you're sitting here, drinking, this is your place that you've established a place for you to drink. If you leave the building now, you would be required to say a new bracha on the drink. Even though you intended to keep on drinking the drink, you didn't want to just drink it over here. You wanted to drink it in the place where you're going. But the same way, if I go ahead and if I say I'm not drinking anymore, then I change my mind, then I have to say a new bracha because I had hesach hadas. I separated myself from drinking. So too, the change of location serves as an interruption of the bracha. It's considered a hefsek. It's considered an interruption. Good morning, Mr. Haber. Good morning, Mr. Cohen. Good morning. And since it's considered an interruption, you have to go ahead and say a new bracha if you left your location. Now, I want to clarify a point that we didn't say yesterday. Mr. Haber is here. We welcome Mr. Haber. That we said, if I establish myself in place number one, I'm sitting down, I'm having my chocolate bar here. Me and Mr. Haber having a chocolate bar. We're not having one now, but we're having a chocolate bar. We're eating, we went to Hershey's and we're having a chocolate bar together. And then I decide, we're eating it right here in the shul. And then I decide I'm leaving the building. I'm going out, I'm going around the corner. So we said yesterday that since it's a shahako, it's not bread. We weren't eating bread. We weren't mizonot. If you leave the place, if you establish yourself in place A and you leave the place, you're required to say a new bracha, even though you intended to have the chocolate. That's what most people would say. But that's provided that I am eating the chocolate myself. But if I'm eating the chocolate with Mr. Haber, we're eating together, and I'm leaving, but I'm coming back because I am eating with him. So that's a string that's tying me to this place. So having that string that ties me to this place because I'm eating with him. So even if I leave and I come back, I will not need to say a new bracha because we're still eating together. I am connected. I'm still connected to that place. The same way, if I had bread and if I left the place, it's not considered an interruption. Even if I'm eating myself bread and I went 2 blocks away and then I come back because I am bound to that place. There's a string pulling me back to that place. So therefore, that's not called an interruption from the place because I have something that's connecting me still here. I am bound to that place. I may say a mizonot, I am bound to that place. I got to get back to that place because I have to say the bracha achrona on the mizonot in this place. A shehako, I don't need to say a bracha achrona in this place. I don't need to say a bor nefashos. If I drank a drink over here in place number one, I had a soda here, I could say the bor nefashos in the street. So therefore, I'm not tied to the place. So therefore, when I have a drink, if I leave the building, I would have to say, if I want to drink more, I would have to say bor nefashos. I've said new bracha, another shehako, because I'm not bound to the place. Mizonot, I'm bound to the place. Hamotzi, I'm bound to the place. And there's the whole question of Bore Pri'ates, the Shivat Haminim, things from the 7 species, grapes, olives. Do they have that, since there's a special bracha achrona on the grapes and the olives and the figs and the dates, maybe and I'm supposed to say the bracha achrona sitting down in that place where I ate. So how bound am I to that place when it comes to the Shivat Haminim? Am I at the same level that I'm tied to the place as bread? So that's a discussion, halacha. Same thing, my wine. How bound am I to say ala gefen in this place? How tied am I to this place? So, being that that's a question, how strong I'm tied to the place. So we'll say stuff as bracha l'hakel. If I'm drinking wine here, I leave the place and I come back. We're not going to consider it an interruption. I have to say a new bracha because I'm still considered bound to this place because I really am supposed to ideally say the bracha achrona in the place where I drank the wine. So because I'm supposed to say the bracha achrona in the place where I drank the wine, so I'm still, there's a string holding me to this place. But so too, the same way the hamotzi, the bread, keeps me attached to this place. So even if I have a drink here, I have a shehako. If I'm having a shehako with somebody, We're drinking together. We're having a fruit party. We're having apples and oranges, but we're having a party and we're eating together as friends. And now if I leave the building, the fact that I'm still eating together with you, that's not an interruption. Now, it doesn't mean I should do that, but if I did, doesn't mean I should, doesn't mean everything what we're saying doesn't mean I should do it without saying a bracha achrona first. But if I went and I did it, it's not considered interruption if I come back. Yes. We're having apples and oranges together.
And I decide that I'm going to leave the place and I'm going to across the street.
Right.
And I take the piece of fruit that we were sharing together and I put it
In a bag. Right.
Do I have to say that?
I would say yes, because again, you didn't come back. You're not coming back to eat with me. You're not coming back to eat together. Right. So I would say if you're not coming back to eat, so then that means you're eating. That means you stopped eating with together. You're eating at that. You've abandoned the group. So I would say in that case, once you abandoned the group, you're no longer tied to that place. There's no string connecting you to that place. So therefore, I would say you should have to say a new bracha, when you get across the street. But if you're still bound to that place, plan on coming back, and your friend is still there, he's still waiting for you, he's eating with you.
When I come back.
No. Like if we're eating together the fruit, me and you are having fruit together in this place, in the shul, we're having downstairs fruit together. Then what happens is you got a telephone call, you had to leave the building, you had to go across the street. Something came, someone you need to give someone a package, you had to go across the street, and then you came back, and then you came back. Oh, that's if I came back, I don't have to say that. Right. If you came back, and only because we were eating together. But if you were sitting having your own fruit together in Safra by yourself, you were having a fruit, you're having an apple, and then you went across the street, and then you came back into the building, you have to say new Bore prayers. Clear? Because there's no string connecting you to this place if you're eating by yourself. But cracker, because it's mezonot, and you need to say al hamichya on a cracker. So if you had enough of the cracker, you had a kazayit of the cracker. So you had about an ounce of the cracker, which requires an al hamichya. So now, if you leave this place, there's a string connecting you. There's a string pulling you back. There's a string connecting you back here because you got to say the al hamichya here. You have to come back to this place. You're bound. You're tied to this place because you would have to say it al hamichya here. That makes you're still connected to this place. And if you come back, you do not need to say a new mezonot, provided you had in mind that you still wanted to eat. If I had a cracker here, and I said my meal is over, I'm not eating any more crackers. And I go across the street. I had 10 crackers, and I go across the street, and I come back. Once I said I'm not eating anymore, it's over. It's over. I have to say a new bracha. If my meal is over, like if I clearly I had in mind not to eat any more crackers, finished. So if you had a half a cracker when you're sitting here. Right. So if you had a half of a cracker, so definitely there'll be some opinions that will say the following. We have to see all the opinions. Some opinions will say a half a cracker, which is not a kazayit, which is not an olive, does not bound me to this place. I'm not tied to this place because I have no requirement of saying al hamichya here. So therefore, if I leave, once I establish my place here and I leave this place, then I can't tell you that everybody would say that, but therefore many would say that I would have to say a new bracha. I have to look it up based on this logic that we're saying. But again, that's provided that you actually established yourself here. I was sitting here. But if you're standing in the hallway and you make a mezonot on your cracker because you're ready to leave the building, that you never establish your place here. Therefore, if you leave the building, you will not need to say a new bracha on the cracker. The same way, if you're standing in the hallway here, you said a shahakol on your coffee. in the building, but you were just ready to leave. You just prepared yourself a coffee and you're taking it to go. Then you never establish yourself here. Therefore, even if you said a shahakol here in this building on the coffee and then you were left, you will not have to say a new bracha. You continue drinking on that shahakol because you never changed location because you never had a location. You never established your place. That's what we were talking about yesterday, correct, Mr. Haber? I don't know if you bought it, you didn't buy it. This was our discussion back in Psachim. You remember? That was our discussion in Arab Psachim. It's the same way when a person travels. You travel, you're in the street. You make a bracha on Madison Avenue, on a shahakol, and then you walk to Park Avenue. You don't have to say a new bracha because it's all traveling. You never establish a place. You didn't change place. You didn't have a place that you changed. You never have a place. You just travel. So the chidush is that even if you're in a building, but the fact that you were not established your place, you were on the move. Therefore, it's not considered an interruption.
Right.
Now, yesterday we said that we would go to mention the Rabbi Vadi Yosef by Shavuot night on the holiday of Shavuot, when everybody's up the whole night. Not everybody. I'm going to correct myself. Some people stay up the whole night to learn. And the question is regarding you're having a drink, people are eating the whole night. What's the halacha? And that would be similar to an office. She said a drink, let's say you came at 12 o'clock at night, 11:30 you came, you started learning, and you're going to be, let's say, up all night eating, drinking until, so now the question is, if you said a shahakol in the beginning of the night, do I have to say, and an hour later I have another drink? Do I have to, right? So that's the discussion here. And like Mr. Haber said, that the conclusion here is that you will not need to go ahead and say a new bracha because your focus was that you plan on eating, you plan on drinking, and you're in the whole night, and you're in the same spot. You didn't leave. You didn't leave. I mean, you're the same makom. I mean, you're in the same place. If I find over here.
Came back 5 minutes later.
Depends. Were you eating with people? Were you part of a group? Were you bound to this group or not? If you're by yourself, then you have to say a new bracha, unless you were having if you had mezonot. If you had mezonot, and there's also another discussion. If you have mezonot, I had cake and I left the building. So we said there's a string tied to you. Right. If you didn't have a falei micha, so therefore that would be, the logic would say you should, if you didn't have enough, then you weren't bound back to this place. But we have to see if everybody agrees to that. I wanted to, here's the sukkah. Let's see if I found it last week. Okay. They did a very nice job in this sefer, Yalkut Yosef Berachos, this Sack edition. I highly recommend it. They did a very good job. And over here, he brings down a lot of the discussion of it's based, a lot of it is based on him, yes. It's based on, because the Yalkut Yosef, that's Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, the chief rabbi, it's based on him, but he brings, and because there's a siman in Shulchan Aruch, which is called Dinei Hesach Hadas B'Suda. Right, the siman discusses things that if people went ahead and make Hesach Hadas. Hesach Hadas means, or things that are called a hefsek, things that are called an interruption in the Suda. That's in siman 178, Kuf Ayin Ches. So over there, he says the following. Maybe we should go through some of these things that he. Let's hear. Here he has a nice. He says, let's see what he says over here. He says it's important to point out that once someone begins to eat any type of food, he's not allowed to change his location while eating unless there is some pressing need to change the location. All the rules discussed in the seminar about what to do if someone changed his location while eating, even when it was not allowed. So that's an important thing to look into, that it's not so simple. People, I'm going to say, start here, continue over here, change location. There has to be some sort of pressing need in order for a person to go ahead and.
Right, to change the location. Is it a floor? Is it divided?
Right, so very good. So if you're in the same room, if I go from one corner of a room to another corner, that's not called change of location. That's fine, there's no problem. If I go from one in the same room, even if I could be, I would think even if it's one room, it should be considered one room. But if I go from one bedroom to another bedroom, one floor to another floor, that's called the change of that. Now you're getting into gray area. Because you didn't leave the building, but you're not in the same room. So therefore, what we would say over there, for sure, we would say, have in mind, if you plan on leaving the room, have in mind when you said the bracha that you plan on leaving the room. That makes it much better. Meaning it makes it much better that if let's say you're in your house and you're eating in one room and you plan on, during the meal, you're going to be going to the back of the house. You plan.
Dinner here, and you don't have your appetizer, your coffee, or your dessert somewhere else. You plan that. That's the way you organize your
Right. So there also the question would be if you should also have some bread in the second location, because if you ate bread in this location, and now you're going to finish your meal in a different location, now you get into a different issue, because you're supposed to say Berachos Hamazon where I ate. So if I ate bread here, if I don't plan on eating any other bread over there, now I'm getting myself into, that's another question. What do I do with the Berachos Hamazon?
I eat bread here, and I plan to leave the room, have the appetizer, some fruit in another room,
and then come back here to bread. That's much better than I would say than saying the Berachos Hamazon in the other place if you ate no bread in the other place. That's what I would say. But again, important that people should plan out. Let's say you're having a meal in your house. Let's say you're having chicken, potatoes, bread. And that during the meal, you're going into other rooms during the meal. And then right? So the best thing is, even though you left this room and you entered into another room, so if have in mind before you eat that you plan on going into other rooms in the house, that definitely makes it better. Okay, so that's he says, if someone was eating ordinary fruits, not of the 7 minim, went out like oranges and went outside, then returned to his place, he must recite another blessing in order to resume eating. That's exactly what we said. And then he says the rules of changing location and necessities recite another blessing in order to resume eating, food, or drinking apply only if the entire group that has been eating or drinking in the first location left. But if any member, even one member of the group is still here, and you come back, you do not have to say a new bracha. Right, exactly. Definition of changing location. All poskim agree. If someone goes outside the building or exits his house into another house, he has changed locations. That's called location. Now, let's see what else. He talks about going from one room to another room, which is, I told you, a gray area. Try to avoid, but definitely have in mind from the beginning. He talks about the stairwell, Mr. Haber. Stairwell, you go. He says if someone is considered as like moving from one room to the other, we don't consider that. You left the building when you go into the stairwell, like one room to the other. Even if he moves to another apartment in that building, whether on the same floor or on a different floor, that is considered the same as moving from one to another, since it's under the same roof. That's what that.
He says that if you use the floor
It's considered like one room to another room. Again, it's the thing that you want to avoid, but we're not halacha. We're going to be safek bracha lahakel. We're not going to require you to say a new bracha when you come back, because we're not going to consider that an interruption. But definitely have in mind from the beginning. You see, it says it is permitted to change location within one room during the meal, even if one's original intention was to eat the entire meal in one place. This is rule even if one cannot see his original place from the corner which he has moved, because there is something blocking his view.
still considered to be the same.
Right.
And he's talking about when you introduce the idea of the stairwell, does he mean it's another floor?
He said that, yeah. Someone, he says, because he said, even if someone moves to another apartment in that building, whether on the same floor or on a different floor, is considered the same as moving from room to room, since he remains under the same roof. But again, it's not
Therefore, it's not required.
right. But it doesn't mean a person should do it. Meaning, like we said, that's what he said in instructions. We're not telling you to do such a thing.
But
If he did it, then he doesn't have to say another bracha. Someone began eating while walking along the street. He may climb into an automobile to continue eating without reciting another blessing, because he started outside. He didn't have a location. He never changed look. He never had a clear, defined location. Someone began eating while in an automobile. He may exit it and continue eating without reciting another bracha. You know, I think Casey has a status of someone walking along the road. Sounds good? Beautiful stuff, no? This, Mr. Haber, I think this is a good thing to have. I recommend it to your house. The house could be safe. Might have, they did a very nice job. Okay. This was put together by Rabbi Biton, Bisol Biton, head of Haket Institute of Yerushalayim. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Tomorrow, if you're going to be around town, we're having regular time. Right? Does that make sense? Unless we should make it later.